Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Absolute100 here, and we're coming at you today with a post-regional deck profile of Nick Marko's deck that he took to regional.
Yep.
And what kind of deck are you guys going to showcase for us today?
Today I'm going to be showcasing kind of my take on masked fusion heroes. I took this in for the 9 rounds of Swiss. I ended up getting 80th place, which isn't bad necessarily for considering it's only my second regional ever. But I did actually have the potential to get top 32, but that's just because of some really close games and breaking occasionally, even though this deck very rarely breaks. But yeah, let's get into the deck profile. So, starting off, we got our obligatory triple Shadow Mist. It searches out your heroes and searches out your mass changes. And basically, this card was the MVP of the entire event. Just basically, I just kept getting Shadow Mist searches off every single turn, with recurring it with things like Call the Haunted, and using it with Blazeman and Polymerization to ditch it into the graveyard as fast as possible to turbo it. So yeah, really, it's just, if you can abuse this card as much as possible, you can keep plussing in every turn, basically. And
yeah, essentially your floater and your searcher of
this thing is a Stratos for mass changes, and it can also be like a what's the card that's was like I don't want to say Dark Soul, but it reminds me more like Dark Soul, except it's only once per turn. So yeah,
yeah, you can only use one of the effects of Mist per turn.
Yeah, it just reminds me, just like the way I've been using it, it just reminds me more of like a Dark Soul. But yeah. Next up, we got the 2 copies of Elemental Hero Blazeman. This card is also an MVP. He will always be an MVP, just because if you use him properly, he's always a +1. Because you can search Poly with them, and you can just dump Shadow Mist into the graveyard, and you can search a hero off of that. Plus, you can dump any hero into the graveyard, and plus, he copies the attribute, and which means you can mass change him into pretty much anything at any given point in time.
Have you ever thought about bumping it up to 3, maybe?
If I played multiple polys, yes, but 3, I'd say 3 of any hero besides Shadow Mist will clog.
Okay.
And next up for the heroes, we got 2 Bubbleman. This is for your XC plays and for making Ab 0. Again, I don't really believe in playing 3 Bubbleman because 3 bricks. But 2 works just fine, just because I see him enough, and I just prefer to search him anyway. I don't want to draw him.
And as a side note, how often do you usually get Bubbleman's draw effect off?
I could have actually resolved it once, but I ended up searching out the 1 copy of Neos Alius instead, just because I thought I would need it. It was actually against Cosmo. It's just like he Dark Destroyed my monster, and and this card was the last card I had left in hand and on field. If I had Bubbleman, I could have summoned it, and I would have been able to resolve the effect, just because the Cosmo player also had no cards in hand and no cards on field besides Dark Destroyer, so I would have been able to actually resolve Bubbleman in that situation.
But Bubbleman requires at least you to not have any cards, and him being the only card in your hand.
Yeah, that was the circumstance, though. Okay. I could have actually resolved this effect.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a little too late though. I couldn't really do anything about it. I mean, either way, against Cosmo, it's not like that +2 would have done anything, just because you can't really do anything to a Dark Destroyer once it's established with this deck.
Yeah.
Because I don't play Utopia the Lightning. So, on to the next monsters. We got 2 Summoner Monk. I actually saw this card a lot. I mean, almost every game that I went first, I almost always opened with at least one of them. And there was a lot of times where I just went Summoner Monk, pitch a spell, go second Summoner Monk, pitch for Shadow Mist, then search Mass Change, and then overlay to 2 Monks for Rafflesia. And yeah, I would open that play a lot, and just super consistent. Normally, I always want to open with at least Summoner Monk. Sometimes the hero lives, but normally I pitch the hero lives for Summoner Monk. And of course, there are times where I open Goblindbergh plus Summoner Monk, and that's also a really good play, just because you can go Goblindbergh, especially your Summoner Monk, and Summoner Monk effect, pitch for Shadow Mist, and then overlay the Goblindbergh and Monk for Rafflesia as well, and not to mention Goblindbergh can also special your Shadow Mist from hand, which also would trigger them. So yeah, that was the monster lineup at 11. I'm actually considering making a few changes to this, just because that Neos Alius is such a dead card to draw, but there are other things I'm considering, as you will see soon enough. Okay, on to the spells. We're playing 3 copies of A Hero Lives. This is a mandatory 3 of, even though you never want to plan on resolving 3, but for the most part, you always can resolve 3 because you pay Half-Life, and normally you just play 3 because you want to see it. You want to always see it.
Because at the most, you'll probably, if you're playing 3 of Heroes, you'll probably resolve maybe 1 or 2 of them.
You really just want to resolve 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just a 1-card Dark Law, which is what you play.
It depends on the circumstances as well.
But normally, most of the time, I just pitch it for Summoner Monk.
Yeah.
And next up, 3 copies of Emergency Call. This is also probably your next best Summoner Monk fodder. It obviously gets you your combo pieces, like your Shadow Mist and stuff if you open the Goblindbergh. It also just helps you search out your combo pieces. Like, if I have a Blazeman in hand, I can add my Shadow Mist to hand, so I can get so I can go for a free Nova Master, basically, and still maintain card advantage. So yeah, it basically means that committing to a poly play is actually free. So it just helps you get to your combo pieces at deck thins, and it helps you get better draws off Nova Master. And next up, 3 Mass Change. Good thing I got these bumped up to gold the other day. Thank you, Ichi, for hooking me up with these. But yeah, obviously this is the main way you go into your masked heroes. And Shadow Mist searches it.
Mm-hmm. And searches out any mask or change card, I believe.
Yeah, change quick play, including the 1 copy of Form Change we play. This card is always going to be an MVP just because people don't expect it. Just because I get a Form Change out my Nova Master for an Acid during their end phase, nuke their back row that they just set. And even then, it also just helps push for game, because every game I opened up a Max Change and a way of triggering Shadow Mist, I search this, and normally I can just push for an OTK when I summon Nova Master, so yeah. This card helps close out games a lot, so yeah, that's why I do play it at 1. Last time I played 2 at last regional, and I'm still happy with playing 2. I would like to play 2 again, but yeah, because 2 would just be an OTK enabler, plus it's an extra target for Shadow Mist, so that means I'd never run out of search targets for Shadow Mist.
Yeah.
Even though at the event I never did run out of search targets for Shadow Mist, so yeah. And for the other ones, we have the 1 Mass Charge for getting back your heroes and your mass and your change quick plays. The 1 Miracle Fusion for the late game. I'm only playing 2 targets for Miracle Fusion, but normally it doesn't matter, just because normally the game's over by the time I would be able to resolve this effectively. We got the 1 Polymerization to search out Blazeman, and this card is it's a card that you need to play, but you never want to draw, just because it's pretty much just a neg 1, because you always want to get it with Blazeman, just because there's no way of guaranteeing it will be live in your opening hand.
Yeah, pretty much.
We got the 1 Raigeki and the 1 Rhoda for the rest of the spells.
Self-explanatory spells there.
Yep. And normally when I draw Rhoda or open Rhoda, I almost always want to get Bubbleman. I want to get Goblindbergh off of it, just because Rhoda is the only card in the deck that can search Goblindbergh. And sometimes I do find myself going for like Shadow Mist or Blazeman with it. Really, the only time I ever searched Neos Alius was against the 1 Cosmo player, and I regretted it dearly. So yeah. That's it for the spells. I believe that is 15 spells.
Yeah, we'll get all of the deck lists will be in the description bar below.
And for the traps, my favorite part of the deck. Starting off, we have Triple Call the Haunted. This card is a very big utility card for the deck. It's the most versatile trap in the deck. It lets you get your Shadow Mist back from graveyard. It lets you get your Blazemans back from graveyard. If I was playing Norden, I'd be going at base Call the Haunted for Norden a lot. Yeah. Let me just tell you. But since I don't play Norden, I obviously don't have that play available to me. But if I did have that play available to me, I'd be XCing a lot more with this build. Even though at the event, I've been XCing a lot anyway. And just because Bubbleman is just that man.
And for if you were to include Norden, you can also include possibly a Mask Change the second.
For Acid?
Yeah, for your Acid plays, if you don't open with your Bubbleman.
Really, I'd probably just see me Mass Change second from the Summoner Monks, but for a Dark Loss or something. But I could see that potentially, but I'd probably just stick with Mass Changing like Blazeman if I make it water for dumping Bubbleman, which I have actually done today. There's even a time where I went, a hero lives for Bubbleman just to bait out the back row. It was against a Dracofell player. You had 2 back rows. It just turns out they were double Solemns. There's a Solemn Strike and a Solemn Warning. So just like, okay, Acid bait out the Solemn Strike. Okay, go Goblindbergh, summon Shadow Mist. Okay, effect good. Search Mass Change. Set hand, special Bubbleman, Rafflesia. He warnings Rafflesia. I still have my Dark Law, and I baited 2 Solemns, and I felt really good. So yeah, Next up, speaking about baiting Solemns, where you're playing triple Dark Bribe. This card is just to stop the Solemns and Twin Twisters, plus it lets you trigger Darklaw, which is the main reason why you'd even want to consider playing Dark Bribe in any deck, really. Because most of the time, Dark Bribe is just a straight neg 1, but if you can deal with the negation. But because Darklaw... because this card makes your opponent draw, you can of course trigger Darklaw with it, which makes it totally worth playing at that point.
Yeah, and then the added factor is if you're playing Dark Bribe, you have to not worry about giving your opponent an extra card.
Which is mitigated because Darklaw will just take a card out of their hand.
Yeah.
And there's actually a funny thing that happened. Round 8, I was playing against the Gravekeepers, and I activated Dark Bribe, and then he Dark Bribed my Dark Bribe. So yeah, there was that. And there was also one game where against a Draco Ball player where I opened triple Dark Bribing 1. Just because I got a Blazeman, and I had triple Dark Bribe, a Blazeman, and a Call of the Haunted, and something else because I went second. And yeah, Blazeman dumped Shadow Mist set 4, and it was just like, oh my god, the back row. And it's just like, trust me, I'm not too happy with this. It's triple Dark Bribe. But yeah, the one Call of the Haunted was all I need to really just come back into the game to resolve Shadow Mist. And then, yeah, I just pushed for a game and won it eventually. It was a bit grindy, but considering how Draco Pals got hit, it wasn't really a big deal. Pretty much any time I ran into Draco Pals or, like, Reformer Pal Odd Eyes or something, I almost always won. But, yeah. Next up for the 2-ofs, we were running 2 Time Space Trapple for our Rafflesia. It can be a little bit playing with fire with the Hero Lives if you're playing against Pendulum decks, just because you can kill yourself with it. But I've never actually encountered that problem. It is a bit of a tricky card when you go into time, just because you need to be careful about your life points. But luckily, I only went into time round 1, and I never actually had to resolve this card, so yeah. Next up, 2 Rivalry of Warlords. This card's just so good. This was actually something I put in right in the day before, and I do not regret it at all. This card put in so much work against my Draco Pal matchups, even against our test duels last night. This card put in a lot of work. It didn't. However, I kept it in against the Gravekeepers, which I really shouldn't have. Just because he was main decking Rivalry of Warlords as well, and it's just like the card, and he even said to me after the fact that the card is incredibly dead versus me.
Yeah.
So,
because all of Gravekeepers are basically spellcasters.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to keep it on the field just so he couldn't make Heartland Draco. Just because he was playing 2 Heartland Draco, and, like, he always had Necro Valley, so I couldn't get rid of it. So I had to pretty much use removal, or, like, since he always had lose 1 turn as well, I don't know, it's just a long story. He just had everything, but yeah.
All the answers.
Yeah, not necessarily all the answers, more like all the floodgates, but, yeah. But that's it. This is my favorite floodgate of the deck behind Darklaw, but yeah. On to the 1-ofs. We were playing the 1 Bottomless for our 3rd Rafflesia target. 1 Chaos Trapple for your BA, and pretty much it's just a really good tech card this format.
It's also good against a couple of the Monarchs because you can banish.
It's good against all the Monarchs minus the Stalos, but yeah. I never saw this card once. It could be attributed to the fact I'm only playing 1, but then again, I also never really saw the matchups I would want this against, except 1 Monarch and 1 Cosmo. And either way, like the Monarch player I won just because I had Restrict Game 2 and Game 3 he bricked. So, we've got 1 Solemn Warning for just staples, and for the last trap we have the 1 Vanity's Emptiness. And that wraps up the main deck at 40. Overall, I'd say like my favorite addition to the deck has to be the 3 Dark Bribe, just because I think I've negated a few Twin Twisters with it, but that's actually the main point was to stop Twin Twisters. Just because before I was maining 1 Starlight Road and 1 Magic Drain, I was considering putting a Stardust in my extra deck, but that just seemed kind of lanky and janky. But the triple Dark Bribe is just superior in every single way. Okay, but that's enough ranting about Dark Bribe. Yeah. I highly encourage it in Heroes.
Yeah, so, we'll go ahead and go through the extra deck.
Yep, extra deck. 1 copy of Anki. I made him a few times. Yeah, he's really good. I mean, he's an OTK nailer at times. He also is just a beater, because he has 2000, plus he can poke directly. He's good at applying pressure to your opponent, because basically it's just like you have to answer him, otherwise he will eventually kill you. So yeah, you play him at 1-of. He has a lot of utility. He's also incredibly good in the mirror match, just because he swings over your opponent's Darklaw, and he then will be able to search out a mass change, and then you can mass change him for a Darklaw. So yeah, he has an incredible amount of utility. We got 1 copy of Elemental Hero Nova Master, easily the best card in this extra deck behind Darklaw, just because this card is just like Anki. It forces your opponent to deal with him, just because you don't want. If he keeps poking, sure, you can keep eating 26 beats to the face, but if you put anything in front of him, I'm just going to keep going plus off of it. This is because this effect does not require the monsters he destroys to go to the graveyard, and plus this effect is mandatory, so he makes floaters miss timing, like Yang Zings. So basically, outside of Dark Law, I could just make Nova Master and win that matchup too. It's incredibly good. One Master Hero Acid. There was actually one point in time where I wish I had a second one, which is against the Gravekeeper player. Just because I could have actually made double Acid, because it's just like I could have summoned the first one. His effect is mandatory, so it would have activated. He had lose one turn up, so it would have been in defense mode, but I could have mass changed it, send it to the graveyard, send a second Acid, and then this Acid's effect would resolve off field. So yeah, since lose one turn was errata, so that it's worded like skill drain, it would then resolve. And we got the one Ab-Zero. I made him actually more than I thought I would, even though I only had one Mermail matchup. Normally, I would just make Ab-Zero against Mermail just because he's just a be-all, end-all against that deck behind Dark Law if Dark Law fails. Just because no matter what they do, they cannot answer this thing without their board being nuked. And every monster they put on board just makes them bigger. So really, it's just like a lose-lose for them. They can't deal with them, and even if they do, they lose their board. So really, it's just like they have to. They can't even like Gamma Seal this either because it would still trigger Ab-Zero. So yeah. So really, like this thing is even harder to out than Dark Law. So we have the one Koga. I only made it once, and it was against a Despot player. Normally, this guy is in here just for Cosmo, just because he's a world beater. He cannot point for point Dark. He can point for point Dark Destroyer just because Dark Destroyer is there, but because Dark Destroyer floats upon destruction, obviously that's not that great. So, but he's really just more like a deterrent from battle. I mean, his effect does target, which is unfortunate, but this was before targeting became bad, though. Overall, I still think he's a very, very good card, even though I hardly went into him at all. But yeah, I'd still say play him as a one-of, and next up, for the last two fusions, we are running the 2 copies of Dark Law, easily the MVP of the entire extra deck. You make him more than anything else, no matter what.
The long arm of the law.
Yeah, and towards the last end of the round, it's just all the people around me are saying, "Oh no, not Dark Law, not Dark Law," and it's just like they know what's up. They know we're playing Dark Law deck here. So yeah, that'll wrap up the fusions. On to the XSeeds. Really a lot of this is just more like staples, but I will be explaining some of my more technical choices. We got one Dark Rebellion Sea Dragon. I actually made this and he came in clutch. So yeah, there's a even though I only made him once, his usage was so important that I'm going to keep playing him. Yeah. One Ragnazero just because it synergizes very well with Koga and Acid. The only time I made this was against Despot. It was against a Despot player, just because he had base. We did actually have a bit of a ruling dispute between Despot 4 and Ragnazero, just because Despot 4's effect to boost himself in a damage step actually occurs at the beginning of damage step, which I could feasibly activate Ragnazero's effect. However, because the boost in damage was not applied until damage calculation, I would then miss the activation window for Ragnazero. However, it ended up being irrelevant just because he had Despot base and his monster was already boosted anyway. So I would just immediately Ragnazero it on summon. And plus, the material on it was a Shadow Mist that I could have triggered, so he pretty much had to scoop at that point. 101. I actually made this quite a lot. Just like, okay, I think I tried to make a few. When I baited out Yuchi's Beatrice, I tried to 101 it, but he had Scolding for it. But I also made it against Draco Palace, and I 101'd an Ignister, so it was really nice. One Excalibur for OTKs. I made this a lot. And because you're playing a lot of Warriors. Yep, it's really it was best back in the days of Towers. I didn't run into any Raid Raptors, but if I ran into any Raid Raptors, I just make that and get over Ultimate Falcon. One Castel because it's stable. I never actually really made it all that much. I was mostly just making 101. I normally save the Castel for Cosmotown. And in my Cosmo matchup, he never even saw Cosmotown once. So yeah, we got the one Dweller because it's just a really good card. Obviously, beefs up. Because I'm playing Bubbleman, you can obviously beef up your Dweller and all your other waters. So like Ab-Zero plus Dweller is a really strong field, especially against BA and anything that a Dweller hurts like Cosmo. Yeah. So and for the last we got the one Traptrix Rafflesia. This is a staple in Heroes. Like Dark Rafflesia is just so good. This is the XC I made more than anything else. I mean, Ragnazero is kind of like a staple in Heroes, but this card is an actual staple. You need to play this. And for the last card, this is more of like a tech choice, like Rhapsody and Berserk. My mentality going into it is that I'm expecting to run into BA and Monarchs a lot, which is what this card would be best used against. But in actuality, I only ran into one Monarch and no BA at all. So, and the only time I made this was against the Despot player, in which I banished 2 Despots, and then I just equipped it to my Ragna. So, yeah. That will do for the extra deck. Onto the side deck. This is pretty much self-explanatory, but I'm going to be making a ton of changes to this.
Just go through it real quickly.
Okay, we got one system down. I wish I had a second one. I never saw it against my one Cosmo matchup. 3 MST. I cited this card in a lot, and I saw it a lot, and it did a lot of work. Just saying, against my Draco, against my Draco Pal matchups, I saw this, and I always MST the back row, and it was always a Solemn, so it was just great, especially considering how, against my first round matchup, he was playing Ariadne, Odd Eyes, and he would, considering how he would resolve Ariadne, I gave him a Scolding, and then I just MST'd the Scolding, so yeah. Triple Prohibition, this is for Burning Abyss, just to call Dante. It's kind of like my ghetto version of, like, Cherries. I never saw Burning Abyss, so I never really had the occasion to side this in. I'm definitely taking them out.
Well, you could also side Prohibitions in against other matchups.
I know, like, if there's certain cards that just really make the match awful, but it's mainly just for Dante.
Yeah.
Against, like, the Draco Pals, I just sided in one, and I don't know, like, call Sorcerer or something, but I don't know. Or Ignister, like, that's a very viable card as well. But yeah, I never really saw it. Against Mermail, I could just say Moulin Glacier and Emptiness, but I have other cards to hit those things. Like the 2 Chain Disappearance. I cited it. I only had the occasion to cite it in once, and it got Twin Twistered. So yeah, and it was against Mermail. I mean, and the Mermail player actually cited in Chain Disappearance against me as well, which is also kind of funny. Is it just like, yeah, Chain Disappearance, your Shadow Mist, fuck your Darklaw. So yeah, that's pretty much his word for word, and he didn't see any Gamma Seals either, which is unfortunate. But yeah, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Next up, we got the Triple Mask Restrict. For the 1 Monarch matchup, it put in work. Game 2, I auto-won because of it.
It's also good against Magic Specters if you were to run
and Amorphages, because they have the Tribute as well. And this card pretty much shuts off Amorphages, which is awesome. And for the last card in the extra deck, we got Triple Imperial Iron Wall.
Now,
go ahead.
Now, this is a very interesting Tekken heroes, or at least the Masked Hero version.
You think that Iron Wall would shut off Darklaw, which it does, and it also shuts off cards like Miracle Fusion and
yeah, so all of your banished cards,
Chaos Trapple, Bottomless. But really, it doesn't matter because it hurts your worst matchup far more than it hurts you, which is why you don't really care about it.
Yeah.
Plus either way, there are lots of other combos with it. Plus, there are lots of other combos. Sure, you also can't use cards like Koga as well, but the thing is, though, if you have your Iron Wall up, your opponent cannot activate annoying cards like Cosmojo, because they cannot banish cards. So, no Cosmojo, so that card essentially is out of the game. Obviously, they can't banish their pilots. It's good, and I even saw a few Infernoid players there. Still, this card would put in work against Infernoids, it would put in work against Amorphages, Magispectors, PK Fire, so it's just like, there's still other matchups to keep citing this in, which is why I'm still citing it. Although I do definitely think I'm going to be cutting a copy of Mask Restrict and a copy of Iron Wall for like 2 breakthrough skills, just because I have no effect negation in this deck at all, which is something I actually do regret a lot, just because like the one thing I needed was effect negation for like the Gravekeeper matchup, but then again he had Dark Bribes. So yeah, that's the deck. But before I close out, there are actually a few things I am considering taking out and changing. One thing is that Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, it's actually a Prisma engine with the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. We've got the 1 Prisma and the 2 Cyber Dragons. If you guys don't know the interaction here, it's basically you summon Prisma, you reveal your Fortress Dragon, and then you send a Cyber Dragon from your deck to the graveyard, and Prisma's name becomes Cyber Dragon. So that way, against any non-Pendulum Machine deck, you can just Fortress Dragon them at any given point in time. So yeah, I'm definitely considering that for the Cosmo matchup. That means pretty much saving up room so I don't have to side as much for them. So that explains that. Also considering 2 Dark Hole for the side deck, and then 2 Twin Twisters. I mean, I don't really feel like taking out the MSTs, but I feel like Twin Twisters would just put in more work versus the matchups that I needed them for, like Burning Abyss. And the Dark Holes are just going to be just for the Rogue matchups. I mean, I definitely am not sided very well for Rogue. I'm mostly sided for BA and Cosmo, so I think just adding in more removal would just be better, as long as I can put in 2 breakthrough skills in there as well. I don't have my breakthrough skills with me, but yeah. So yeah, that is the deck profile, and
alright guys.
You got any concluding words for us, Subsaldry?
No, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Nick, for that incredible Masked Hero deck profile, and to all you watching this, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will leave Nick's entire deck list down in the description bar below, as well as a link to his channel in annotations and in the description bar as well. Hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching.
Peace.